All right. So hi, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. Thanks so much for joining us on this day of love. We're really excited that you want to spend your afternoon with us, or at least a little bit of your afternoon. I'm here with Shelly, our amazing business success coach, Shelly Myers. Hi, Shelly.
Hi, Natalie.
So today we are going to be doing our first deep dive, and we're really excited about this because today we're focusing on everything practice better forms and notes. So really the point of this deep dive is to make sure that you know all the functionality that's available surrounding the forms and the note features in Practice Better, and that you're maximizing them. So that way you are minimizing the amount of time that you have to do or that you have to put in to, do the tasks that revolve around using forms and revolve around taking notes for clients. So that is just kind of, what we're focusing on today. If you have questions as we're going through it, we are going to do a bit more of a demo style so that we can make sure that we get everything in for you, but we're for sure going to answer as many questions as we can at the end. So shoot your questions into the chat or the Q&A box, and we're going to do our best to get to as many of those as we can at the end of the deep dive. Okay, so we're going to do our best to keep all of the questions forms and notes related. Okay, so if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We're going to try to, like I said, limit these questions to forms and note related topics. All right, so I am going to turn off my screen, my video. I'm going to say bye for a second. Let me share my screen first. That's the wrong button. Okay. So first and foremost, can everyone see this screen? Just let us know in the chat if you can. Where'd that chat go? Moved it all the way over there.
Yeah, everybody can. I'm getting lots of yeses.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off, and we're going to dive right in. All right. All right, everyone. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're focusing on forms and notes. So we're going to go right into our forms section. So right now you're looking at the Practice Better practitioner portal. Okay, and so to get to our forms section, we're going to go over to My Practice, and then we're going to head down to Forms and Waivers. Okay, so forms are really important. They're such an important part of your practice, and for a few reasons. For the main reason is we want to make sure that we're collecting all that critical information we need from our clients to be able to advise them and guide them correctly, right, and safely. We also want to make sure that we're using the forms to collect consent, right? So if you're working with clients and you want to make sure that they consent to or they agree to, the terms of working with you, that they understand the scope in which you practice, right? You want to make sure that you have that documented somewhere, and that the client is also aware that they're also aware of your terms of the terms of working with you, right? So you want to make sure that you're collecting critical information. You want to make sure you're also collecting consent from your clients regarding working with you. And then forms is also a really great way to check in with clients along the way, right? So continuing to keep up to date records on what's happening with your client. So these are just a few reasons why you really want to make sure that you're optimizing your use of forms, so that way you're not missing any of these pieces. So if we look at Practice Better, there are a few different ways you can build your forms, okay? So we're going to click on this red button in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you're not yet familiar with Practice Better, that red button is your fast action button, okay? And it's going to bring up the main actions on whatever page you're on, okay? So here we see that we can create forms from a template. We can upload forms or a worksheet. We can create waivers, so where we require a signature, and we can create forms or questionnaires. Okay, so let's look at creating forms by uploading a worksheet or PDF, okay? So let's say upload form or worksheet.
Yeah, so why would you want to upload a form versus building one in the form builder? So perhaps you're in the process of building a lengthy intake form and you're not quite finished with it yet. So this would be your interim solution to send the form to your client as an attachment within the platform until the form that you're building in the form builder is complete.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So like Shelley mentioned, this is not ideally, this is not going to be the final, the final format of your form. It is that interim solution. So for example, you can upload your PDFs for a client. So what you'll do is you'll name the form like I did here. I called it intake questionnaire. Then you'll choose a form from your hard drive, right? So you'll say select a file. And then if I say this intake questionnaire, and then I will save it. Okay, so when a client receives a form that's been uploaded, all right, so like this one that I just created here, if I want to send it to my client, if we look at uploads, my client, when they receive it, they're going to have to download it. Okay, they're going to have to download the form, fill it out, and then they're going to have to scan it back and upload it to you when they've completed it. So much like they would do if you had if you were sending a form via email. Okay, so on the client side, the client experience, it's not as smooth as it would be if they were filling out the form in Practice Better. That's why it's not that ideal, final way that you're going to deliver your forms. Okay, kind of just short-term option. The other options would be creating a form from templates. So we do have templates available too. So this is also part of getting started quickly. So we have create from template. Okay, so these templates that we see in this list, you can use them as they are, or you can modify them as much as you'd like, right? So if we look at the intake questionnaire here, this is just a standard general nutrition intake questionnaire. And again, you can modify it, right? So if you need to get started quickly and you don't want to have to recreate your form from scratch, you can just modify this one, right? So if we look down at our form, we see there are different questions that are already asked. And if you want to tweak the way they're worded, you can click on the little pencil, which will allow you to edit the question, right? So change the wording, change the labels as well, right? You can also rearrange the questions. So drag and drop them to a different location in the form. And then on the right-hand side here, you'll see all the different question types that you can ask, right? So don't be scared. Go ahead and you can play around with these. You can drag and drop the new question type exactly to where you want it to be. So like this yes or no question, I'm just dragging and dropping it, and it's going to get inserted where that solid gray line is, okay? So here I can ask my question. Do you wake feeling rested? Right? And then you can keep on building, right? So also too, in the templates, not only can you do, these yes or no questions, you can also create a flow for your form. So you can add page breaks, right? So you can create a new page somewhere. If I want to add a new page break here, so this is going to split this form up into, it was already 2 pages, so now 3 pages, right? You can also add conditional flows. So this is creating more of a complex form, but conditional flows, Sally, you want to, yeah.
Yeah, conditional flows, that would be whether it's based on your client's gender, if they answer yes or no to specific health questions or symptoms. Like for example, if your client answered yes to having diabetes, then they would be presented with additional questions on diabetes, such as what type of diabetes, maybe their latest A1C values, symptoms related to diabetes. So clients, they'll be taken to a different set of questions based on the response, so they don't have to spend time reviewing or seeing questions that are not applicable to them.
Yeah, and we see this a lot, especially with gender, questions regarding gender, right? So some people will have an intake form that, for example, is specific to their female clients, whereas other people will have forms that are specific to their male clients. So now with this flow and the conditional flows that you can add, you can actually consolidate those 2 forms and create 1 form. So like Shelley mentioned, if your client is female, they don't have to read through the male specific questions or vice versa. So to do this, you can click on the little red button in the bottom right-hand corner again. So that again being our fast action button. And the second question or the second option in the list says add conditional flow. So the top if you click on, it says personal information because that's the name of my first question, but you will see a list of all of the questions you've created. So let's stick with personal information at the moment and say, okay, so if a client chooses male, you can do one of two things. You can either show questions when they choose that they choose male for their gender, or you can hide questions. So let's say we're just going to show questions, and let's pretend these questions are male specific. So let's say, have you ever taken antibiotics? Have you, passed hospitalizations or surgeries? Let's pretend those are male specific. So these two questions, for example, would only show up if the client said that they were male, if that's what the box they ticked. Okay, you can choose multiple options here to show those questions. And then you can do a second one. You can do another one by going back to the red button in the bottom right corner and say, add another conditional flow for the same question. So personal information can have multiple conditional flows attached to it. So who that's online on the call live with us today has more complex questions in their forms, where the response to one question would lead into follow-up questions?
Say me.
Amanda, you do? Yes. Gianna, Betsy? Perfect. Leandro, a few? Perfect. So who here is using conditional flows? Didn't know this existed. Holly, yes. Amber, I do. Leanna, I am, exclamation point. Moi, says Leandro, amazing. So that's I'm really happy to see that, there's a good bunch of you using them, but there's also a lot of you that don't know that this exists. So this is exactly why we want to be doing these deep dives. So again, as Shelley mentioned, these conditional flows don't have to be specific to gender. Okay, so if you have, let's say, yes or no question, like there's already conditional flow built into this one. So the question was, have you ever taken birth control? And if they say yes, then you can say, when was it? Or have you been on hormone replacement therapy, or whatever the case might be. Okay, so those are conditional flows. We have help articles that can walk you through building this, step by step as you're working them into your forms. In terms of going back to templates, and there are a couple other areas of the form builder that I want to go over, but I want to go into a different form to show you those. So if we look at the symptom questionnaire here, I'm going to edit this one. So who here has a form that they use where they ask their clients about symptoms on a scale of 1 to this, or, give me a score of your headaches, your dizziness, your, faintness, and then yes, oh my gosh, there's so many of you, that's awesome. Okay, so really cool is that now you can auto tally, or you can find the sum of each section automatically. Okay, so if we edit this is a grid style question. So let's just take a look at where that is in our question toolbox on the right hand side. Okay, so that's this little, looks like a table, okay, in the middle of our toolbox on the left side. So it says grid. So what you would do is you would just either drag and drop that right into where you want to insert it. Okay, I'm not going to recreate it because I have one right here. So for example, headache. I want my clients to tell me the score of how frequently they get headaches, they feel faint, they feel dizzy, right? At the bottom, I can label the box. I can add a label. So here I've written total. And then on the right-hand side, I can choose to auto-calculate either the sum, the average, or the average including zeros or not including zeros, okay? So that's awesome, and that's been around for a few months now. But what we've recently added is a grand total functionality, okay? So now, if you want to know the grand total of your client's symptom scores for their head, their nose, their nails, and everything down the list, right? And you don't want to have to, your clients to, you don't want them to have to tally that up themselves, or you don't want to tally it yourself, right? So now we've added a grand total functionality, and you're gonna find that by clicking on the red button in the bottom right-hand corner again. And the top option now says add grand total or average, okay? So now I can add my label, so I'll call it grand total, okay? Display aggregate to client, so you can choose if you want your clients to see the grand total or not, okay? And then the calculation type, so you have a couple here. So you can either say the sum, the average, including or ignoring zeros, the minimum, the maximum, okay? And so then you can go ahead and click all of these. So head, nose, nails, hair. You can also click on this little arrow at the bottom to select all, okay? And then save. So if I show you what that's gonna look like, okay, you're not gonna see it where you're building the form, but if we click on the 3 dots next to our form and we say preview, this is where we get to see what it looks like. So let's put some scores in here just to get an idea of what this would look like in real life. So here are a few scores, and if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we're gonna see that grand total is 10. Okay. How many of you didn't realize that you could calculate the grand total automatically? No idea. Super awesome. Yes, so this is really recent. Shelly and I have been on many calls with many of you, and we've received the feedback over and over again that you guys wanted the ability to calculate the grand total. So this is something we kind of just snuck in a couple weeks ago. Okay. All right. So now we're going back into templates. Okay. So back into templates. So you see this at the bottom of your screen, your pop-up where you get to choose your template. You see that you have unlock templates. Okay. So unlock templates is going to be applicable if you've been provided with an access code, okay? So these access codes are generally going to be provided to you by, if you work with a business coach, or if you work with an institution or an association, if their forms are built into Practice Better, and you get access to those as a member of those associations or institutions, then they'll provide you with the code and then you would type it in here. So a couple of weeks ago, we sent out SMART goals. We sent out a SMART goals worksheet and guide that you can use with your clients. So that SMART goals worksheet can be accessed through this access code. So if we go ahead and type goals 2019, which is already here, and I say submit, this is where your templates are going to open up. So I see now that 2019 setting SMART goals form is available. So I can click on it and then make any necessary modifications. All right. And then the other thing I want to show you with the forms, just in terms of building your forms, so that you know what options you have when building your forms and you don't feel stuck or unsure of how to go about it, is you can build forms from scratch. So I know we've been talking about building forms from templates. We talked about uploading a form like a PDF, but you can also build them from scratch. If you have your form, you have your flow that you like, and you want to build it right into Practice Better, you can do that in one of two ways. So either you can click at the top option when you go to the Fast Action button, which says Create Form. This is going to give you a blank canvas to build your form. Okay? So you choose the question types that you want to insert, and then you simply insert them. Okay? This is just a blank canvas when it comes, just like the form template that we edited earlier. If there's something that you want your clients to sign, you can always just say create waiver. And this is going to come already set up with a text box for you to include your text. Also, it's going to come with a a signature box at the bottom where it's asking your client to sign their name. So I'm just going to copy some text here so you can see how easy this is. So if you have your own waiver that you use with your clients, so I'll just say client waiver. You can simply copy paste your text here, go in and maybe add some spacing if the spacing is a little bit different. And if you have multiple, if you want to break that form up into different sections, you can add section titles. So I can say like office policies, right? And then you have underneath this little feather where you can just keep adding text boxes. So again, I'm just going to copy paste the same exact text I copied here, but just showing you if you're coming to Practice Better and you already have forms that you use, that you like, and that you want to continue to use, it's just basically a copy paste right into these sections. Okay, and you can add as many headers and text box sections as you'd like. To add signatures, so if you don't already have, if you're not, if you're in a form the form section and not necessarily in the waiver section, you can just add a signature by clicking on the little feather in the top right-hand corner. Okay. How many of you here not only require your clients to sign a form, but also sign the form yourselves? Okay, so a lot of you only clients, some of you are both. So now you have that functionality of having not only the client sign the forms, but you can sign the forms as well, if you need to. Oftentimes, if you go back and listen to our webinar that we did with Lisa Fraley at the end of 2018, we talk about agreements and when someone should sign, when both should sign. So you can go back and listen to that because Lisa Fraley is, has all the legal answers. But you can change who needs to sign. So you can say, my client needs to sign, or that I need to sign. Okay, and so you can change what it says under the signer section. So if my name were Wendy Smith, right, I could write my name and my credentials, right? So, okay, so you can add signatures for both of you. Okay, so when you go to save your form, if you don't already have a signature on file, it'll ask you to sign. So that way it's just going to automatically be inserted right into that form. Okay, and so you can add up to 3 signatures. So you can have up to 2 clients sign. So if you're working with minors and you need both parents to sign, you just go ahead and add another client signature, and then you can change the title to say something like Guardian 1 and Guardian 2 or something along those lines. All right. Shelly, how are we doing?
Great.
Okay. So before we get into what we do with the forms, because let me know, are you comfortable? Do you feel like you know how to build a form in Practice Better? Yes, yes. Perfect. Okay, good. We know how to build forms. All right, so now I just want to show you a few things that you can do with the forms, okay? All right, so you've got 3 dots next to any of your forms, okay? So one, you can preview it. So you want to take a look at what it would look like to a client. Okay, so if you want to see what a client would see when they looked at this form, here's an example of what it would look like. So you can preview it, okay? You can also download it as a PDF. So you say preview as PDF and then print it out. If you needed to provide someone with a PDF version of the form, you could do that. If you're building a similar form, right? So not too many changes, just a few. You can duplicate the form and then make those small adjustments and then save it as a whole new form. So you can duplicate your form so you don't have to recreate it. You can complete it for a client, right? So if you were sitting with a client and you wanted to fill out a form for them, you could say complete for client, you would choose which client you want to complete the form for. So let's say I was filling this out for Cindy Clark, for example. And anything I fill out here is going to be saved in Cindy Clark's file. So when she logs into her Practice Better account, she would see the form filled out for her by you. Okay. You can share a link. So share a link here is simply just a link to this form. So if you want to put this link in an email, right, to send your client to the form, they're going to click on the link and they're going to see the form like this. Okay. So Wendy Smith here has her own branding. She's on the Plus plan. She has her personalized branding, so that's why the colors in the logo are different. But they can fill out the form from a link. Okay. Or you can, if you're using, for example, you want to use the form on your website, for example. Okay, you can say create widget. So creating a widget would allow you, in a very common scenario, would allow you to create like an application form that you would put onto your website. So you would embed this HTML code into the appropriate page on your website so your clients could fill out the form there. So maybe this is your way of screening. Do you want to work with them? Is it a good fit? And then you can get in contact with them afterwards, or whatever that flow is going to look like for you. Okay. And then the other thing, thing that we're really, really excited about, we just launched this over the last week, is share with colleagues. We know that a lot of you love to collaborate. You guys are so caring and always thinking about your colleagues and wanting to help each other out. So we added this share with colleagues functionality to forms that you've built yourself. Okay, so you can come in and you can say share with colleagues. So keep in mind that these forms, or the option to share with colleagues, is only available on forms that you've added yourself. So if you've downloaded a template, for example, you're not going to have the functionality to share with colleagues unless it's a Practice Better template. Okay, so if we say share with colleagues, you're going to get this pop-up that says yes, that this form is yours and you have the right to share it. And when you click on share, you get this pop-up. Okay, so you can copy paste this text right here into an email for your clients. Okay, so that they know how to access the form that you're sharing with them. We'll say copy. And then they're going to go right into their own practitioner account. Go back to create from templates. And under that unlock templates section, they're going to put that code right here. That's not the code. Sorry. I thought I had it. Just a moment. Okay, take two. And then they're going to say submit. Oh, where's my code? This code was saved from earlier. All right, so let's try this here. There we go. So it's going to open up. It's going to tell you the name of the practitioner who shared it with you. Okay, and now you can access it. So Wendy Smith shared with me her intake questionnaire. So now you can go in, tweak it for your own needs, save it. Okay. So you can share the form with whoever you'd like. You can also, if you decided you wanted to share it, but then unshare it, you didn't want someone to have access to it after they had already accessed it, you can click on the three dots again and say unshare form. So the code comes from, and if I lost any of you here, I'm sorry. So the code comes from You click on the three dots. Let's go back here. You say share with colleagues. Okay, and you copy this text. So this text you're going to share with your colleague, and it says, "Here's the access code to the name of your form." The code is right in the middle, right below that. Okay, and then right below that, they'll have instructions on where they can go find out how to use the form. Okay, so it goes to our help article that'll walk them through putting the code into the locked template section of the templates. Okay. If you unshare the form, it does not disappear for the people who've already kind of quote unquote redeemed it. But if they haven't used the access code yet, or it won't be valid for anyone using the access code moving forward. Okay. All right. So there's just one question. So what if you started a template but changed most of it? You cannot share it, no, if it comes from any other sources other than the Practice Better templates. Okay, so these ones at the top here, you're welcome to use them, share them all that you want. Any other templates that are shared from any other organizations cannot be reshared. Okay, and your colleagues also can't reshare your forms. Okay. All right, Shelley. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So how do you get these forms to your client? So you can actually, from the forms and waivers page here, you can actually just send it to a client, but you can also include these forms in your services or packages or programs when you're setting those up. So you can add a form for your initial consultation. So clients need to complete it and sign it. You sign your form before they can complete the booking or registration. So that's under your advanced options when you're setting up your services or packages. You can also, with our automations, you can automate the forms being sent. So you could send forms automatically after a booking or a package has been confirmed or a set number of days prior to a session with you. So if you have your clients complete like session update or progress forms and you want those to go automatically, say 2 or 3 days before the session, then you just set that up as an automation and then you don't have to worry about sending it to them. And you'll be alerted once they submit that form for you to review prior or during your session. You can also include the forms in your programs. So if you have a fixed date or evergreen program, you can include it as a worksheet to help keep your clients engaged and on track with the program goals.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a few different ways, like Shelley just kind of outlined. There are a few different ways you can share these forms with your clients throughout the platform. So the first one she mentioned was as part of your service. So you can actually build that question or questionnaire right into your service flow.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to My Practice and My Services, this is where you're setting up the services that you're offering to your clients. So services or packages, okay? So let's say we wanted to add our initial consultation or our initial, questionnaire to the initial consultation service. So you would just click on Edit next to that service type. And then as Shelley mentioned, you've got the advanced options where you can go and attach that form. So we'll click on advanced options here and then scroll down and you'll see bookings page forms. Okay, so this is where you can add your form right here. So that way, when your client is booking this service online, they're actually going to be prompted to fill out whichever form you attach. So let's say it's the intake questionnaire. They're going to be prompted to fill out this form as part of their booking process. Okay, so they're not going to be able to complete the booking process without first completing this form. So if you are going this route, I definitely would recommend, attaching a shorter form to your service, so that way, they don't get discouraged and they don't complete the booking process.
Yeah, one of the users was asking, when you send a form to a client, how do they receive it via email? So when you send a form, whether it's automated or you send it from the forms page or from their client file, they will get an email alerting them that they have a form to complete. And they'll also, if they're on the portal, if they have an account and they're logged in or on the mobile app, they would get a notification in their alerts that their practitioner has sent them a form or that you sent them a form to complete. So it would be both an email and a notification, unless they've disabled, receiving an email from you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So they can fill them out online. Of course, that's unless you upload the form as a PDF, then that's a bit of a different story as we talked about in the beginning. But yeah, they're going to get an email, or like Shelly mentioned, if they're, using the mobile app, they'll get an instant alert letting them know that they have a form that you'd like them to complete, and they can do it online. Okay. So they can fill it out and even sign it online. Okay.
So Natalie, if we're thinking about sending, weekly progress or update forms, can the system send clients forms multiple times?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you can obviously always send a form manually. So if we're back in our form section, we can actually go in and click send to client as many times as we want. As you mentioned earlier, Shelly, we also have the automations option where we can just hands off. You set it up and the forms go out according to the service type or the package that's booked. So if we look at automations, it's right here on the bottom left-hand side. The other way you can access it is by going to My Practice and then automations towards the bottom of this drop-down menu. So the red button in the bottom right-hand corner again. So in the middle, you've got two icons these are both form related. Okay, so the first one says send forms after the booking is confirmed. Okay, and the second one says send forms after a package is confirmed. So if we do the send forms after the booking is confirmed, you can label your automation. So again, don't forget, this means we're setting it up one time and then you don't have to worry about it again. Anytime a client's gonna book whichever service we're gonna select as our trigger, the forms will go out automatically. So let's say this is our intake or intake session or initial consultation, whatever you want to call it. And then I'll mention that it's for forms. So that way if you have to go in and make any edits, you know quickly where you need to go. Of the services you created, which one or which ones will be the trigger for this automation? So let's say it's our initial consultation. As Shelly mentioned, you can decide when you want these forms to go out, okay? So you can say, I want them to go out immediately after the service has been booked or confirmed, pardon me, or you could even schedule it to go out a few days ahead of the session, right? Maybe I want it to go out 4 days before the session. You can even set up the automation so the forms are delivered after the session if it's like a session recap questionnaire, right? So you've got options in terms of when you want the forms to be delivered. And then at the bottom here, I've made a few intake questionnaires, but at the bottom here, you would choose which forms you would like to send out when the initial consultation is booked. Okay, and simply click create.
That's the button that you would check if you want to send it multiple times, or if it's a form that can be sent multiple times.
Exactly, exactly. So if you don't want the form to be sent out multiple times, as Shelly's mentioning, you're going to leave the settings exactly as they are. So clients may complete forms multiple times will stay unselected, right? In the instance of something like a check-in worksheet, right? So remember we can set, or not remember, but keep in mind you can set up as many form automations as you need. So you can set one up for every single service type, right? So if you wanted to set up another form automation, and this one were for something like check-in sessions or follow-up sessions, you could choose to send those forms out multiple times like Shelly mentioned. So you would just check mark this box, choose which form you want them to get. So let's say the symptom questionnaire, we're having them fill it out before they come in for every 30-minute consultation, right? And so the system is going to send this form out every single time someone books their 30-minute consultation. Okay, so you can either have your settings so the form goes out one time and that's it, or you can keep sending it every time that specific service type is booked. So Sarah asks, is it possible to auto send forms when someone books a session, even if they forget to confirm? So the confirmation is not the client's confirmation. That's a really great question. It's your confirmation. So when you accept that appointment, then the forms are sent out. So whether you're choosing to send out the forms or confirm the appointments automatically or manually, that's the confirmation that triggers this form to be sent. All right. And then just the other way that Shelley mentioned that we can include forms is in your programs. Okay, so if you're running online programs, or if you ever plan, you know, you're thinking ahead that you might want to run online programs at some point, you're going to realize that keeping your clients on track and accountable is really a big part of it. You want to make sure that not only are they signing up for your programs, but they're actually running through them and getting from them all the, you know, all the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into creating them to help get them to wherever it is that they want to get to. So if we do look at, for example, let's say this 21-day real food reset, let's go to this one. So in your modules that you build, okay, you can actually add forms and worksheets. So you would first build that form or worksheet under the My Services Forms and Waivers section, where we were at the beginning of this deep dive when we talked about building your forms, the different ways that you can build your forms, okay? So you would come into the module where you want to include your form or worksheet, and then you're going to see a Forms and Worksheets tab in the top. So underneath where it says Edit Module, you've got that green bar. Right under there, there's a Forms and Worksheets. And then you click on Add Form to Complete. And then you're going to choose the form. So let's just say we're doing this SMART Goals worksheet with our clients on week 2. Right, you're going to add it here. And now when your clients receive this module, when this module is released to your clients, they're also going to have this form or worksheet assigned to them at that time as well. Okay. All right. So before we move on to notes, there's just one other really big piece that we wanted to talk about. So if we go back to forms and waivers here. Okay, so now that you've completed your forms, now that you know how to share your forms with your clients, now we want to talk about getting the information from a form into your notes, okay? And that's where mapping comes into place. So you've got this Mappings and Settings tab right below where it says My Forms and Waivers, okay? So that green bar where it says My Forms and Waivers, right below that it says Mappings and Settings. So mappings here is going to save you a lot of time. So this way you don't have to transcribe the information that clients give you in a form into the notes, where you're eventually going to be, you know, taking notes of their journey and what's happening with them, right? So we're gonna edit this mapping first, just so that way I've already set it up, so that way we can see it a bit quicker. On the left-hand side will be all of the questions in this form, okay? So we're building a mapping for our intake questionnaire. So all of the questions here on the left-hand side are all of the questions that exist in your intake questionnaire, or whichever form you're working out of, okay? And then on the right-hand side is where in the client file you want this information to go to, okay? So on the right-hand side, you have a couple handfuls of sections where you can send this information to into the client file. So if ever you want quick access to the information without having to go through and dig through completed forms, you can do that. So at the moment, these sections here are not yet customizable. That's something that will happen with time. So right now, you're just going to go ahead and match your questions, the most important questions. So if we look at, in my form, I have a question about maternal family illnesses, and then you're going to find a section that matches, you know, as closely to that question as possible. Okay, so this is just the information that you really want quick access to. okay? You don't need to map every single question, just the ones that you want to highlight and have really quick access to. And you're going to find that those sections here, the ones that we've already created for you, are typically, you know, a lot of the sections that you might want quick access to. Okay, so create as many mappings for as many questions as you want.
Yeah, so regardless of where your clients completed their forms, you as the practitioner, so once the client completes the forms, you will be able to review the form, the completed form, in the client file under their forms and waivers.
Exactly. So that's the piece here, right? So let's go into Mary Smith's file, okay? Mary Smith is our test client. We're going to work with her today. So just in respect to the mapping, this is the section I wanted to bring your attention to, where we're sending information, where we said these are the sections we want to send information to, are these sections here: basic information, medical history, diet and lifestyle. Okay, so if we come in here, these sections are all blank. I haven't yet put anything into these fields. You can type them in manually if you'd like, or you can use mapping to fill out these sections. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we look at our completed forms and waivers. So now that the forms have been sent to a client and hopefully completed, right? I come to Mary Smith's file, because that's our client today, and I go to her forms and waivers section in the bottom left-hand side of her client file, and I see all the forms that have been shared with her. Okay, so you can see the status of all of the forms. Have they been started, right? Have they been completed? So if Mary Smith is coming in today and she hasn't completed her intake questionnaire, for example, okay, I can click on the 3 dots and I can send her a reminder. Okay, so I can remind Mary, you know, to fill that intake questionnaire. If she has completed the form, okay, you can click on the form, and now you're going to see all of her responses. Okay, all of Mary's responses are available here in her form, and then under every single question, you have this blue text box, okay, where you can take your private notes. Okay, so these notes are not visible to Mary Smith. So for example, under family history, she told me her grandfather had IBS and diabetes, and this is where Wendy Smith decided to take note that it was type 2 diabetes and it started at the age of 35, right? So these notes are not visible to your clients. So just like you know, maybe back in the day when you were taking notes on your paper forms, you don't have to lose that functionality just because we're transitioning to putting things online. You still have that same functionality in your digital forms.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was just going to say, in my practice, like I use pin notes, for example, like if I have a shorter session, a follow-up session with a client and I have limited time, but I'm going to be going over a longer form, I just pin the ones at the top so I make sure I get to those first, and then I can go over the remaining questions if there's time left in the session.
Yeah, and those are these guys. So right on the side of your note, you just click that little push pin icon, and like Shelly's mentioning, now it's just going to be at the top. So at the top of your form, under pin notes, are all the questions that you wanted to touch on, or all the questions that you thought were important, or the information that they provided was really important. Okay, so now we've looked at Mary Smith's file, right? So you reviewed this form with her, maybe in your session, and now this information, we want to send it to her client file, right? We don't have to rewrite all this stuff. This is where we want to send the information. So you're going to click on import. At the top of the form, there's an import button, and you're going to see all of the mapping that you've already set up. Okay, if you don't have mapping set up for a form, you would have the option to go ahead and create the mapping for this specific form for Mary Smith. So if there's anything that you talked about, something she identified during the session that wasn't previously set up in your mapping, you could go ahead and add a new question to map, right? So I can say medications, and I want this to go to, I know I'm missing it, oh, down here. prescription medications, okay? So when you're happy with all the information that's mapped for Mary Smith, you're going to say review, and you're going to see what this information is going to look like as it gets pushed or imported into her client file. So you can scroll through, see all the information that's going to be sent through. We see that medications are skipped because there was no answer provided for these questions. And then we say import. And that's it. All this information that we see here is all now part of Mary Smith's file.
Yeah, so there's another important reason for wanting to add your client's information to the file, either manually or automatically, and that is to make charting and note-taking during your sessions a lot more efficient with our session note templates, which we're going to show you here in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other thing, is now we want to be able to use that information that we just pushed into the client's file. So sorry, my screen just went away. Okay, so sorry about that. So we want to talk about, before we move into the notes, I just remembered something Shelly wanted to chat about, sorry.
Sure.
So when we're in the forms and waivers, there are a couple other things we can do with this information. So one, we've sent the information that was mapped to the client file, and we're going to go look at that in a minute. But you also have the option, you click on the 3 dots next to a completed form, right? And you can say create notes. So this is just going to actually copy all the responses from this form into a note. Okay, so I see all of the sections that have been selected when I set up my, or no, sorry, I see all the questions that have been answered, and I can simply click create note, and it's going to create a session note with all of this information available. So if I click on create, you're going to see everything that Mary Smith told me and my private notes, right? Grandfather had type 2 diabetes since age 35. It's all part of a note here for you. So you can go ahead and keep adding to this. Okay, so that's one really great way that you can very easily take your information from a completed form into your notes. The other thing you can do is if your client made a mistake, Shelly, have you ever had clients making mistakes in their forms?
Absolutely, quite often. Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes they click send by accident, or they send the form and they forget that they didn't give you certain information. So now you can resend the forms for edits. Oh, Shelly, you need to talk louder. I think it's more that I'm not letting her talk.
Sorry.
So now you have this resend for edits button. So again, if you go to your client's forms, click on the 3 dots next to the form that they made a mistake on, okay, and just say resend for edits. Now your client's going to get that form sent back to them, so they'll be notified by email, an instant alert, and they'll have the option to go in and now make any edits that they need to make. Okay, you can fax a completed form. So if you need to share this with, maybe their medical providers, you can go ahead and fax it. And you can also download the form if you want. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so hopefully you can hear me better now.
Yes, I think so.
Great. Okay, so the session note templates, they're a framework for taking notes during your sessions with clients that you can use over and over again and modify and build onto. So we offer pre-built templates for you to use as they are, or you can modify them for your own needs. Of course, you can also create your own note templates from scratch, but we would recommend checking out the pre-built templates first to see if you can utilize any of these for your session notes to help you save time.
Exactly. So everything you're going to see, everything we're adding to the platform is always about saving you time. You're going to hear us talk about this a lot, but that's just exactly it. We want to make your workload as flow as easily as possible. We want to save you as much time as possible. So Kelly had a good question about the difference between adding the form data right into a session note or adding it to the client's file. That's a really good question, and actually brings us to, remember we talked about Mary Smith's, we imported Mary Smith's information from her form into her client file. So now if we go into basic information, we see all of the information here from her form. We see the medical history. This used to be blank, but now it's here. And the diet and lifestyle information as well. Okay, so this plays a really big, important part because as Shelley was mentioning, we have note templates. Okay, so note templates, as she said, is the framework for where you take your notes during your sessions, right? So we have a lot of things to think about when we're in sessions with clients. So we don't want to have to worry about, did I forget to talk about this? You know, did I cover all the points I needed to cover? So under My Practice, you can set up templates, right? You can set up the workflow that you want to follow for your different session types. Okay, so we have templates available for you if you want to start from that, from a form that's already exists, and then tweak it. So you can click on View Templates to see the templates that we've already created. Okay, so these are available to you on all plans. Okay, so if we click on the initial consultation session notes here, just to get an idea, you see what we call placeholders, right? These little percentage signs with text in between the two. These are placeholders, and this pulls where it says contact name. This is actually going to pull your client's name from the client file if there is information there. So this is why it was important to put information from the form into the client file. So that way you don't have to retype this every time you're going into a session with your client. Okay, so the second icon in the top left corner says Add Placeholder. Okay, these are all placeholders that already exist that you can include into your note templates to automatically pull this information into a note when you're in session with a client. Okay, so if you want to add your client's mobile number, right? We've already, in some of the templates that exist, we've already put some placeholders in here, right? So this one is, we want to know about their health concerns. We want to know about their pre-diagnosed illnesses. You can add as many placeholders as you'd like. And of course, you can edit these. So as you can do with the forms and the form templates, where you can modify them as much or as little as you want, you can go ahead and modify these ones as well. You can also break your notes up into different sections, right? So yeah, so you can break your notes up into different sections by clicking on the red button in the bottom right-hand corner and add a text section. Right, so if you want to break it up into different sections, and this is also very helpful if you only want to share, if you do share parts of your notes or all of your notes with your clients, this makes it a bit easier. So now if, for example, you're using something like a SOAP note, and you only wanted to share the P part of your SOAP note, the plan part, or the recommendations part of your notes, you could go ahead and by default, choose to make that section visible to your clients. So all the rest of your note sections, if that make the section visible to my client is not toggled on, those are all going to be private. So you can have a combination of private notes and shared notes with your client. Who here is using note templates in their practice? Okay, so we've got quite a few people using the note templates. All right, someone had zero idea that, Kristen, zero idea the templates were there. So if you're not using note templates, how many of you have a structure, like a typical structure that you follow when you're in your sessions with your clients? Right, and that's the thing is, right, I was the same way. I used to have a checklist. back before Practice Better existed, I had a checklist. I'd check off the things that I wanted to talk about in my sessions. I don't know if you did that, Shelley, but I was all about checklists.
Yeah, well, I just had a note template on paper, similar to a checklist.
Yeah, well, there you go. So Shelley, you were a step ahead of me. So yeah, so you can make your workflow here. So I think whether you're already using the note templates, or you plan to, or you're already, you know, at least in your mind you have a note template, I think putting it on paper or screen in this case is really going to save you a lot of time. It helps take some of the pressure off from having to remember what it is that you want to talk about with your clients. So yeah, so let's save it and exit this template. And you can build your own from scratch, as I mentioned. So you'll click on the red button and say create template, and you can create as many as you want. So what does this look like? Sorry, Shelley, did I interrupt you?
Oh, well, somebody actually has a great point here. They're saying as a coach, they don't usually follow the structure. They let it flow what the client needs. So, I mean, the templates are there for you to use, you know, to help save time, but you can always, like Natalie showed, add that text box at the bottom and just start from a blank slate. If you're in the middle of taking notes, you know, it still offers the flexibility to, you know, follow a different structure within the same template, just at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also, you know, sometimes it's just nice to have more than you need. And then you can, you know, delete what you don't need.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice to have those little prompts and, you know, just in case you run out of things to say. And
it's like a flexible framework, we could call it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So now that we've created a note template, is everyone clear on, we're going to bring it full circle. We're going to show you exactly what it looks like to create a note from a note template now, but does everyone understand how to build a note template? Perfect. Yes, yes. Kristen, I wish I'd known sooner. It's never too late. Nicole, yes, fantastic. Perfect. Okay. So now we're in Mary Smith's file again, right? So we see Mary Smith at the top of the page, and we're going to go into notes. So when you come into notes, you're going to see all of your past notes. If you want to see it in an expanded form, you don't want to just see the title of the form, or the title of the note, you can click expand notes in the top right corner. And now everything is going to be in extended format. Okay, so you can always go back and minimize that again by saying collapse notes. So depending on how you want to view your notes, you just use collapse notes or expand notes in the top right corner. So now we're getting into Mary Smith's session. So I'm going to click on the red button. And oh, wow, I have a note template available. So if you do have note templates available that you've saved, you can go ahead and choose which one you'd like to use. Okay. So if you want to, we're going to use this, this initial consultation session note here. But if you wanted to use you want to create a new one, you would just click create new, and that would just be a blank note. Okay. And so where we had all those placeholders, I don't expect you to remember all the placeholders we set, but you should remember there were quite a few placeholders that were set up in the note template. All that information, here we go, supplements, allergies, paternal illnesses, maternal illnesses, sleep patterns. Now that is all pulled in automatically. So I come into my note and I know exactly what it is, you know, that my client is taking. I know exactly what it is that I know exactly her family history. So you're not having to go dig through past forms or past notes to find that information. So that is such a time-saving feature, this mapping. You set it up one time, and then you just import it once you've reviewed once you've reviewed the completed form, and then it goes right into the client file. So this way it can be pulled into notes. So as we see, or as I hope you see, when we develop new features, we're always thinking about what happens next with that information, right? How does this become part of your workflow? So sometimes it does happen that, you know, there's information that you might want to access when you're looking at when you're in a session with a client, but where is it, right? So if you want to pull up information that's not available in this note, you have what we call a client hub, okay? So it's the second icon in the top left corner of your text editor. Okay, so open Client Hub. You can also do Shift Control Z. And now Mary Smith's Client Hub pops up, and now I can access additional information, right? So if I want to go in and say, what did we talk about last session? Or what did we talk about on April 17th? Okay, I can go in and I can see our notes. So I can reference it, copy, paste information over if I'd like. You could also go in and see her past forms. Okay, so I see that she filled out this intake questionnaire, right? So now I can see, maybe I forgot to pull something into her client file, but I want to go back and reference it. So I can go through her form, go through all 2 pages of it, or there were 15 pages of it, right? So
Natalie, could you have that open during a telehealth session to refer to?
Yes, absolutely. That's a really great point, Shelley. Yes, absolutely. You can have this available to you and open in your telehealth session. You can also use it to take a quick note if you're in your telehealth session. So you can click on the little pencil in the bottom right corner. And this is a quick note. So here I could say telehealth session number 2, right? I don't know. And I can write my notes. So add my notes here. And this is going to be saved as part of your client's notes, right? So in chronological order, if I save it, when I go back to my clients, here we go. There's our telehealth session number 2, and there are their notes.
So Natalie, what if you have text or content that you find that you're typing quite frequently, like, you know, paragraphs or sentences of text, and you just would like to reuse that information for different areas in the chart?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we definitely take that into account. So sometimes, like Shelley mentioned, if you're writing the same stuff over and over again, we've created a snippets functionality, which is shorthand basically. So if I wanted to say, if my client comes in and they're saying, oh, they're having trouble sleeping, so I see current health concerns here, and one of those things is poor sleep, I can pull up a snippet. So I would just say shift and then squiggly line, and I'm going to see any snippet that I've created. So I want to talk to my client about why poor sleep, how that affects their inflammation, for example. So I can pull that up, and there's this text. And this text maybe that I want to talk to refers to this Healthline article and whatever that might be, right? So it can be questions, maybe additional questions where someone says I have trouble sleeping, and now I have a whole list of questions that I want to ask them. It might be standard information that I would share with a client who has, sleeping issues. It might also be something that maybe, sometimes we talk about topics that are very complex. It's hard to have a very concise and user-friendly way of explaining that, or client-friendly way of explaining that. So maybe you create a snippet with those very complicated scenarios or processes that happen in the body. You can go ahead and, just click squiggly line, and then choose, oh, these are the SMART goal questions that I want to ask my client, because they're having trouble setting up goals for themselves, okay? The other way you can do it is that if you already wrote something out, and let's see if I have an example in here. Let's just say plan here. Let's say this was really, I wrote something out and I thought, wow, I could reuse this with another client. So then you can go ahead and just highlight what it is that you wrote. And then right under the T, so you've got a T in the middle of your text editor, which helps you size or resize your font, you have Save Snippet. So I can click Save Snippet, and I can write in a title for my snippet. Now say plan, for example, and then I save this. And so when you do refresh your page, for example, save your page before you refresh it. Now I can go back and can say squiggly line, and plan is here as well. So if I wanted to use plan with someone else, I have that available. So the snippets are set up. You can go ahead and create snippets. To do that, you're going to click on the little gear, so settings and preferences, and then you have shortcuts and snippets, and you can go ahead and create as many of them as you want. You can either create them in advance, or as you see from the notes, you can create them as they come up. Jennifer, yes, remember to save. So that's the important thing to talk about in forms, that the forms are not yet auto-saving. Definitely part of our roadmap. So just save periodically. And I guess just before, just here with the notes here. So just you have a few saving options. So save your notes. It's going to keep you on this page. I'll just say, don't share. Save your notes. It's not going to take you out of the page. It's just going to save it, and you can keep working on them. Save and exit your notes. If you're done your notes and you're ready to move on, right? Or sign and save. So for people who require your notes or your chart notes to be signed, and then you can go ahead and sign and save them, but then they're going to become read-only. You're not going to be able to go back and make any edits if you use the sign and save option. Okay. And I think one thing I forgot to mention is if you do want to share sections of your notes with your clients, right? So we know how we said we can select which sections of our notes we want to share. So we would say, make this section visible to my client. When you're ready, when your notes are how you want them to be, they're ready to be shared with your client, you're just going to go ahead and check mark this box. Share notes and attach documents with my client. So that way when you click save, okay, you're going to get this pop-up where you're going to go and confirm that you're ready to share the note summary. So the summary in your note would be shared with your client. The sections that you've marked make visible to my client will be shared. The published protocols will be shared, and any attached documents.
Yeah, so I find it really helpful to share, maybe not all of my note, but things like the summary, plans, recommendations, so that the clients, they have one place in their portal it's called notes, and they can refer back to when they need a reminder as to what we focused on during their session, or what the plan was for them to focus on to work towards their health goals before the next session. So, you know, sharing is quick and easy, and there's no need to download or email files to your client. You just select share, and they'll have all the information in their notes section to refer back to.
Exactly. Saves you so many steps.
Yeah. Awesome.
So once you've exited your note, you can click on the three dots, and you have a couple options here. So you see that there's a little in progress icon here. So if you're done with your notes and you want to say they're done, I don't have to go back and make any edits or adjustments, click on the three dots, and then you can just say mark it as completed. Okay, so now that'll change to a check mark. So now when you go back and review all of your notes, especially if it's in a collapsed format, I can see, okay, these ones are completed. This one down here is pre-forms update, or not forms update, but notes update, pardon me. But you can see that the top one here, telehealth session number 2, is still in progress. So I might have to go back and do some work there. You can also click on 3 dots here to go back and edit your note. You can download it as a PDF. So if you needed to, print it out and have a physical copy, you can print it as well. This is just a different view for printing. If you're collaborating with any other practitioners, so you're collaborating with maybe a medical provider, and they wanted a copy of the note that you created for your client, the chart note or session note, you can go ahead and click fax too. So the fax is available in the Pro plan with credits. And we have help articles to walk you through setting that up, but you could go ahead and type in the practitioner or the provider's phone number, their name, It's going to say by default your name or anything you've set up for your default here. You could put a little subject line so they know what it is that is, what the point of this this note is, and even a message if you wanted to provide them a message. So you could easily share this information with a provider if you needed to. Okay, and I know I mentioned eFax is available with credits on the Pro plan. It's also available in the Plus plan with a dedicated number as part of the Plus plan. All right. So I know we just inundated you with a whole lot of information. We just wanted to be very clear and very thorough about what you could do with the platform. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our best to get through as many questions as we can here. Shelley, I know you've been keeping track of some of these. So while I scroll back to the top, if you want to jump into some of the ones that you've already identified.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So, yeah, so one of the questions is why share notes over making a protocol and share? So the notes are just, again, kind of a summary so the client can refer back to what was discussed and what the plan is, for the next session or what they're supposed to be working on. A protocol is, very specific to whether it's a condition or something they're working on. It has a focus. And the protocols, you're able to pull in food recommendations, whether you're gonna, include, reduce, or exclude. You're able to put in very specific supplement recommendations, whether that's supplements that you have in your office or you're integrating with FullScript. You're also putting in lifestyle recommendations. So these are things that you would have, pre-built that you can pull into a protocol and say, okay, for this, for insomnia, here is your protocol that you're going to work on over the next 30 days or 3 months. It's, specific to a time frame. And then they know exactly like why they're working on it. So it's just very more specific to a condition or something they're working on versus the notes is just the notes, summary of the session that you had with them.
Yeah. And also too, when you are working in a protocol, so whether, when you're creating a protocol specific for a client, like right now we're in Mary Smith's protocol, again, you can use that client hub. So you can do the shift controls.
Mm-hmm.
Shift controls Z, I'm in the wrong screen, sorry. And you can pull up the hub. So here you can reference the notes you took. So you want to make sure that you're giving the appropriate recommendations, or even go back and reference past protocols to see, what you recommended previously.
So another question is, how can I create a fact sheet with my logo? So that one, I'm not sure if you meant like in the notes, if this is for a client specific, or you could create a template, and then when you assign it to the client, if you go to download it, it'll create the PDF. I don't know, Natalie, if you want to show where they can add their logo to the PDF.
Yeah, so the fact sheet itself, like the cover page is not going to have your logo on it. However, like Shelley mentioned, you can add your logo to the branding area of Practice Better. So you've got under the little gear, under logo and branding, you can set up your branding for PDF documents. So if you scroll down on the Pro and Plus plan, you can add a PDF document header, right? So where you would put your logo and your company colors. So when you are sharing that via fax, that would show up on the document itself. So if you were sharing let's say a form, your logo would be on the form, not on the cover page, but on the form. Just keep in mind that, fax quality is not the same as PDF quality. So it may not look as beautiful in a fax as it would if you printed it out or emailed it over. But yes, your logo would show up on the document itself, not on the cover page. I hope that answers that question.
So there were a couple of questions about mapping. So can you map multiple questions to a single destination, and does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can absolutely put as many questions into, let's go back to our forms here. Mappings and settings. So let's go back to this intake questionnaire. So if I wanted to put multiple fields under, like, so for example, have you ever taken birth control? That would go under prescription medications. Down here, I also have the medication section going over to prescription medications. So you can put as many sections as you want into the practice better sections. They're just gonna stack on top of each other.
Yeah, and so while you're here, another question is, can map settings be done as a default setting, or does it need to be done for each client as they sign up? So the mappings is per form, so you can set that up once, but the importing the data after they've completed the form, so you would want to review that and then import it into their file. So the mappings would be set up once, although you can go in and modify it if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can create the mappings for every form you have, and then, like Shelly mentioned, you can customize it per client. So before you actually import it, there you can make the call if you need to adjust what's being mapped.
Another mapping, I have two very similar intake forms. Can I do one mapping for both forms?
One mapping for both forms? No. Yeah, the mapping needs to be set up per form. You could set up you can set up the two mappings similarly, but you would have to effectively do it twice. You can also, I guess while we're here, you can also click the Add All button. So if you wanted to add all of your questions and then choose where you want them to go, you can always do that too. And while we are here, I think I missed this when we talked about mapping originally. You have the 3 dots next to each question that you choose to map. So you can choose to include the question title. So especially if you're using one section to map multiple questions, having the question title is really helpful. And by default, it will be selected. You could also take it off if you wanted. And then you can also choose to include your private notes. So again, remember when we took notes on our form, and I went ahead and I tweaked and said Mary Smith's, grandfather started his, type 2 diabetes. I specified it was type 2 diabetes at the age of 35. That note also got imported because I had included my private notes there as well.
So there was a question about programs. So I love the Evergreen program. However, can we trigger it by a specific, I think she's referring to the first module opening. Can we trigger it by a specific start date instead of the date registered? Because when I send my forms, this date messes me up.
No, yeah, sorry. If it's an evergreen, it's going to start, however, it's going to start the number of days. Like each module will be delivered based on the amount of time that has lapsed since the person registered. I'm not sure if I.
Well, instead of the date of enrollment, so right now it's based on the time lapse from the enrollment versus if there was an option to set a specific start date. So let's say they enrolled on February 5th, but you wanted the program to start on the 10th. And then everything would trigger from the 10th.
That would,
I think that's the question.
If I understand correctly, that would be a fixed date program.
Well, yeah, it almost seems like a hybrid of a fixed date. So she's saying she loves the evergreen, so people can sign up when they want, but she's just wondering if things could trigger from a date that she sets versus the enrollment. So that's not possible right now, but I am understanding what she's asking.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So yeah, that's not available at the moment.
It's like a fixed date that people could sign up for anytime, you know?
Yeah, so not at the moment, but definitely something we can explore.
And then we have so can you have a client pay and complete forms before booking a service date? If so, can you explain the process? I want to receive completed forms before somebody has a date set for the session.
The easiest way to do that, I mean, there are a couple ways, but not in a very automated fashion. The easiest way to do that would be to create in your service. You would add your form to the service, like we mentioned under advanced options, and you would also set your service to require to pay at booking. So they would go ahead and they would choose a date. However, the booking would only be confirmed once they have, only be confirmed once they've actually filled out the form and they've entered their credit card details to pay. Otherwise, there are a couple roundabout ways, but it won't save you any time to do that. So if I show you what that looks like, for example, I'm just gonna click on the 3 dots next to that service and say share link, okay? And so for a client booking their initial consultation from you that requires a form to be completed and payment, they would choose how they want to work with you. They would choose a day that's shaded in, so that means you're available, and the time slot. And then they would give you their details, so like Mary Smith, for example. Mary Smith. And then here they're going to have to put in, they're going to enter the information from the questionnaire. I don't know if I can finish this before. I might have a bunch of, okay, there we go. And payment. I wasn't sure if it was going to let me move forward, but I guess you could require responses to the questions. But anyway, so then they would pay, and then next is where you would be either prompted to manually confirm the appointment, or it could be done automatically. So that would be the easiest way to go about doing that.
So we have, can you group email from Practice Better? If doing a group cleanse program, I usually send a welcome email and daily emails, and then we can upload all the files when the program starts. So I guess is that like a broadcast message out to a group? So right now, we don't send out broadcast messages to a group. Essentially, when you set up a program, as the modules are unlocked, a welcome email would be sent to anybody who has been registered for that program. But at this point, you're not able to go in and say, you know, hey, I would like to send out an additional message to everybody who's in this group, in your group cleanse.
Correct. Yeah, no, you're right, Shelley. So we have group functionality coming out over the next month or so, where you're going to be able to communicate with groups of people, and you'll be able to send out a message to, like Shelley said, you know, different groups. So all your clients or just groups of clients, but that's not available yet. When it is, we will definitely do a deep dive on all things groups for sure. There was a question that I saw, and it was just a question about access codes. I don't remember exactly where I don't know exactly where it happened in terms of our conversation, but access codes, do clients need access codes to fill out forms? No, they do not. The only people that need access forms are you, the coaches or practitioners. So when you go to access a template, right, a form that has been shared with you either by another colleague or by an association or institution, then you would go here and put your access code in. Clients do not need any access codes to access any forms that you've sent them. All right. Let me see if I can find any others. Shelley, do you have any?
Yeah. Well, can you upload videos for your clients to view? So in the program, you can upload a video into the modules, so they could view that within the module, or it could be, you know, as an attachment to the module. So you could embed a video link or upload a file, depending on how you want to do it.
Yeah, so you can do it so you can actually share videos in a few places. So yes, you can do a part of your program. If you're using chat with your clients, you can also go ahead and upload the video there. You can actually add video as part of your notes. So if you're sharing a portion of your notes with a client, you can actually go right into, so if I show you, let's go back to Mary Smith here. If I go into her notes here, you're going to see in the text editor that you've got this little camera. So you can say insert video, where I don't have video ready, but you could insert the video here and just put, let's say, a YouTube link, right? So if you want to give them a video on, you know, I don't know, yoga, like a nice and easy, relaxing yoga class or something like that. Or you could even just upload an attachment as well. So you can click on the red button in the bottom right corner, say attach file, and maybe it's a video that you've created specifically for your client, and you want to attach it to their notes. You can also include it in their protocols. There are a number of places that you can share videos with your clients. Okay, so let me.
Hey, Natalie, can you show real quick how, again, to take the form and convert it to a session note?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go, we're again in Mary Smith's file. So under forms and waivers, next to a completed form, you're going to see 3 dots, and you're just going to say create notes. So you're creating a note from the responses that Mary Smith gave me. So we're automatically going to skip the ones that that weren't answered. So we see the ones that weren't answered are actually blank here, and the ones that were answered are check marked. So you just simply click on create. And now all that information is there. All right, Shelly, how many, do you have let's take 5 more minutes and see what else we can get in there in terms of questions. You guys have been amazing. Yeah. I love that you're so engaged and so interested. So I'm really excited about that.
So is there a way to download an editable version of session notes, like a Word document?
Repeat.
So if somebody wants to like download and print, well, not print, but edit. So right now you could create a PDF, but is there a way to create like a Word document that they could edit after they've downloaded it?
No, if they download it, it's going to be a PDF.
Okay. Let's see. Do you have a private Facebook group for Practice Better clients? Not currently. Something we are exploring, but we don't right at the moment.
Right. Let me see if I find anything else in here. I hope we're doing, I'm apologizing in advance if we don't get to all these questions. There are a ton of them, which is awesome. It's exactly how we like it. If we don't get to your questions, okay, not because we didn't want to answer them, we're just doing our best scanning through them, you know, on the fly here, but you can also send your questions to our support team at help@practicebetter.io. If you're in your practitioner portal, you can click on the little question mark and you can go down to the bottom and say report issue or problem or send us feedback. And you can get your questions answered there as well. But we're always happy to answer questions. So let me see if I find anything else here that, Shelly, you haven't already addressed. Shelly, do you have one more?
Let's see. Scroll up. Can you type into the notes when you're on a video chat?
Yes. So that's actually another really good question. So when you're on a video chat, so the easiest way there are 2 ways you can do this. When you're in a video chat, I don't know if I have any video sessions scheduled here. Let me edit this guy. So you've got two ways you can do this. Okay, so one is that you can say that you want your, so one way you can do it is your client hub, like we talked about, by doing control, just change this date because this is already passed. By doing shift control Z and pull up your client hub when you're in your session. Okay. There I am. Hi. So when you're in your session, you can say, you can do control, shift control Z, or you can click on open client hub right here. Okay, so you can click on at the bottom of this, you can just take a quick note. Okay, so this doesn't give you access to your note template. So that's the one piece that you really want to be aware of. So if you do need to access your note templates, then what you just do is, since by default, unless you've changed the setting, your video chat is actually going to open up into a second window. You would just narrow the two screens so they can fit side by side, and you can take notes, you know, with the template if you need a template. So if you're taking a quick note and you don't need a template, just use the client hub here. You'll have, you know, you can still have ample formatting, but if you do want to use the note template, in that case, then you're going to just narrow the two screens to fit side by side. That makes sense. Okay. All right. We're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sticking around. I know we went over, but we're happy. We're happy to stick around, and we're happy to have been able to stick around and answer your questions. Also, when you close out the webinar, you're going to get a little poll. Okay, it's going to be a short poll just asking you about feedback on our webinar and also about other topics that you want to go into a bit further. So take a minute, if you don't mind, give us a bit of feedback so that way we can keep doing these deep dives and discussing topics that are relevant to you and your practice. All right.